Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, as always, a real treat. Mr. Arturo Gomez is in the house. Arturo is a private aviation, luxury travel, and hospitality entrepreneur. You've got your hands in a lot of different things. Arturo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Very excited to get on board and to have a chat today.
Likewise. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So we got connected online, and I saw what you got your hands into and some of the stuff you're doing, and I said, we got to talk. You have a fascinating story. You've been involved in a lot of different industries and had success in all of them. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're currently doing, and then want to dive into your journey and how you've got this far.
Yeah, totally. I think it's important to share that I've also had some extreme failures along the way. So, so successes, yes, they're abundant, but there are some pock marks along the way too that that I think help facilitate the drive towards success for sure. So right now I have my hands firmly focused in two separate industries, but I think that they are have so many similarities because at the end of the day, they're very experience focused, service based businesses. One is aviation, private aviation, / luxury travel, and the other one is hospitality. So the hospitality piece, when I moved to Chicago in '97, which was now a million years ago, it's crazy. I had moved to Chicago, just graduated from the University of Michigan. Was supposed to actually go to dental school and got accepted, deferred for a year because I just in the 11th hour, really my senior year, there was certain things about my personality that started to become a lot more prevalent and a lot more evident to me that there was just more that I needed to do. And so that's where this kind of hang up and this confusion in terms of what I should be doing at the end of graduation came into play. And so my sister was living in Chicago. I said, I always wanted to be in the big city. I grew up in Lansing, Michigan, small town. And so for me, moving to Chicago or New York was really where my head was the entire time as I was growing up. So I moved to Chicago and at that time it was the .com boom. The bust hadn't really occurred yet. And so, the markets were flush. It was really an exciting time to be in Chicago. Chicago was really kind of coming into its own at that time. And I had my background was in biology and Latin American studies. And so when I moved here, it was really difficult. I thought that I would be able to get it. What I was trying to do is become some type of liaison in an office like with Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, like in their Latin American offices. And so because my first language growing up was Spanish, still, perfectly bilingual, I thought I was like, this is the path. And so I got the interviews, but, because I had really no finance background at that time, there was so many kids coming out of school that were, had the finance background. And so they were the ones getting the jobs. I needed to work. So I jumped behind a bar. So I jumped behind a bar, a place in Lincoln Park, excuse me, merely to pay the bills. I mean, because at that point, my parents were like, listen, we just paid off all the rest of your student loans. You're on your own, son. So, I needed to, make a living. And so I started working in the bar industry, and that was a little disheartening and a little reality check at the same time. You'd spent 4 years, spent a ton of money, at a prestigious university like University of Michigan, and you come out and you're serving drinks to old timers at 11 a.m. on Clark Avenue in Chicago. Is like, this is not the way that I envisioned it. And so about 4 months into doing that, I got a call from an advertising agency that I applied to become a junior copywriter. So I jumped into that. That gig lasted for about 4 months. They lost a big account. It's a small firm on Michigan Avenue, but it was one of the only Latin speaking, Spanish speaking advertising agencies in Chicago. And so I was essentially like an experimental position that they thought was needed for their growth. Growth didn't necessarily happen, so I was diminished. So at that point in time, I decided it was probably time to go back to dental school to take that opportunity and do it. So then at that point, I was looking for just something to do. This was April, late March, early April, 1998. And so I was like, all right, maybe I'll find something fun for the summer and get ready to go back to school in the fall. And I found it was back then people still looked at the ads in the paper, like the job postings. And so I saw there was a nightclub opening up. And so I was like, well, what better way to spend your summer than working at a nightclub? So I went and applied. They had me come out and interview. And first thing they asked, which I'm sure it was a valid question, they're like, your name's Arturo Gomez. Do you speak Spanish? I was like, yeah, I'm fluent. They're like, all right, well, you speak English, obviously. I was like, yes. They're like, well, we're going to put you in charge of all the bar backs. We're going to make you the head bar back. I said, okay. So again, 2 weeks into this thing, this place was just opening up. So opening night, every celebrity you can imagine at that time, you name it. So like Billy Corgan, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, a long list of celebrities that were there. And I'm carrying bags of garbage and cleaning up throw up. And it's like, I'm literally on the dock throwing out these bags of trash, and Tiger Woods comes out with his security and they're getting ready to leave. And it's just literally him, his security, and me. And I'm like, I didn't go to school to do this. This is BS, man. And so about a week after that, I called the front office or the GM and the ownership, and I was like, hey, I got to get going. This is not where I need to be spending my time. And so they said, well, listen, we want you to stick around. We're going to give you some more money. So they made it interesting enough to stick around. About a month after that, they fired the GM and made me the general manager. So I went from head bar back to GM in a span of probably about 2 months. Had no clue what I was doing, but I think there was certain leadership tendencies that I was starting to understand that I had through sports and athletics, through high school, going into college, and then when I started to get into the real world and started having work in teams. And so I knew that I liked that. And the nightlife hospitality industry really was forcing me to be right brain and left brain. So essentially, you had to be good at numbers. And if you were, essentially good, you had some attributes that you could contribute on the creative side, then you became essentially this individual that had a lot of power behind you. And so I fell in love with that. I fell in love with having the responsibility to manage people, motivate them, guide them, mentor them. Not that I was doing a ton of mentoring at that point in time. I was certainly weighing in with my opinion on a lot of stuff, but and so that's how my entrance to hospitality started. And so fast forward 3 years after that, two of the guys that I was working with for essentially, I was made a small partner in the business about a year into that. 2-3 years later, those guys peeled off, started a company called Rocket Ranch Productions, and they asked me to come on board. And so I came on board as the third partner of that company. That company we launched in, I think it was 2001, and we grew that to about a $46 million company. So we opened various places in the city of Chicago, opened some places in South Florida. At the time of my departure, which was very beginning of 2017, I was the president of the company, and we had, close to 1,500 employees. And so it was a long run. I was there, 18, 19, close to, 18 years. And at that time, I started to get really nervous that I think I was going into my midlife crisis, which it's a real thing. I come to find out. It's a real thing. And I started to be concerned that I was going to be a one-trick pony, that my life was going to be fully focused in restaurants and hospitality, and that's who I was going to be. Um,
Mm.
Same time, my relationship, my partnership, um, I would say started to erode. There was, as people get older, our desires change in life, and I think that was the same story. And so when you partner up with somebody, we were all young kids. I was 22 at the time, maybe 24 when I became a partner in Rocket Ranch. But you grow, and a lot of things change. And so around that time, I had um, just gotten married. We were expecting our first child, and I was constantly thinking about other businesses, other industries, other things to innovate in, and it certainly was not. My partners were getting a little frustrated with this wandering eye that I had. I didn't really care, but it was just so. Um, and so I, at the time, it was August 2016. I wanted to go to a Michigan Iowa football game, and it was going to be in November. And at that time, my wife, we would have the baby, our newborn, would be about a month and a half at the time that I was requesting to go to this game. So my wife's like, so wait, let me understand. You're asking to go to Iowa City with your guy friends for the weekend and go get trashed and watch, football game. The baby's going to be a month old, right? And I was like, yeah. She goes, sorry to swear, but she's like, F off. And so I was like, well, what if I can get there in the same day and come back? She goes, it's a 4-hour drive. It's a night game. You guys are going to be drinking. She's like, not a chance. I said, well, let me see if I can create a solution. So a very good friend of mine who him and I had grown up in the industry together, the hospitality industry, he actually had some friends that actually had some aircraft, some planes. And I called him up and I said, hey, do you know how to get a plane? I'm looking to get up like a 12 passenger jet from Chicago to Iowa City. He's like, for what? I was like, well, I want to go to this game and I want to get there and I want to come back and, trying to avoid the headache at home. He's like, yeah, well, let me make some calls. So he made a couple calls, and honestly, we tell the story that if we had not gotten such a crazy, sharp, sweet deal on the jet on the front end, that the story, it may not have evolved to what it became. And so he comes back, he's like, hey, it's $13,000. I said, here's my credit card. I want it. 12 passenger Falcon 900. And so I locked up this contract, signed the deal. And then that same day I called the University of Michigan ticketing office, said, hey, I need 12 tickets to the Michigan Ohio game, or the Iowa game. And so they gave me the tickets. I started texting friends. I said, hey, I've got this full package, travel package. We got a private jet, we got ground transportation, alcohol, ticket, everything, one-stop shop. So we sold that out in literally like in 3 hours. We set up like a little PayPal account. We sold that out. I called them up. I was like, hey, we need another plane. So we got another plane, sold that plane out. And then we started doing this throughout the fall. We started doing this throughout the fall. And so from August of 2016 till the end of December 2016, we did probably about 5 trips that essentially became a proof of concept. People were like, well, one, I was trying to keep this under the radar, and like it was all black ops, and so eventually it kind of came to a head, and my partners were like, hey, we restrict you from doing that. I was like, well, that's you can try to restrict me, but this is not going to work out well for everybody, right? And so in January 2017, I went and raised close to $1 million to get this thing started. And so once the money was approved, essentially funded in mid-February 2017, I I quit. I sold my shares of my portion of the company back to my business partners, and I left. And so that was the story of me kind of embarking into aviation. And I had everybody telling me, they're like, so what do you know about aviation? I said, I don't know anything. Here's what I know. I know planes fly. I know that. And I know myself. I know that I'm extremely dedicated and that I'm not going to stop until this gets figured out. And I'm really very good at research. And so I'll go find the answers. And so that's in fact what happened. And so we started on this journey. We launched the company was still around. It's called Big Game Air. At the beginning of Big Game Air, once we launched it in August 2017, kind of very quickly thereafter, I started a company called Triumph Jets. And my partners on Big Game Air at the time were like, hey, man, you need to focus. Like, what are you doing? I was like, well, there's going to come a point in time, I think, in the future that people are going to not understand that we can do all things in aviation, but this is very niche. Big Game Air is, it's very clear essentially what we do, and that it's very sports related. And so that was the truth. And so we were not being considered at all by anybody that was trying to do anything aviation wise outside of sports. So if there was a scheduled event called Super Bowl, the Masters, the Derby, college football, whatever, people were calling us because we were handling tickets, we were handling the aviation part. And so around end of 2018, and mind you, the first year of business was brutal. I mean, it was, we were inches from death, and so in fact, in early 2018, 2019, I had to start doing some stuff back in hospitality because I was not drawing a salary essentially for 2 years. So for 2 years, I was just kind of burning off savings and income that I had. And so, and you can imagine after, 19 years, 18 years of being in a successful hospitality business, the life that I had built for myself was not inexpensive. And so the burn was, extraordinary. And so I was like, at that point I had to start dipping my toe back into hospitality. But end of 2019, we started to get a real uptick of people becoming familiar with that we were in the aviation industry in a broad sense, and that we could accommodate, corporate or leisure travel. And so that started an interesting uptick, but it was still really only about, $1.5 million a year is what we were generating. But we had no office at this time. We had shed really all of our, any assets that we had. I mean, we were asset light to begin with. We had no planes. We were just merely brokers in the process. We started to see something that that really kind of refocused us. We were like, okay, so now there's another business that is starting to come to life. And at that time, Big Game Air was probably around $1.5–2 million as well. Certainly not enough to sustain us. The profitability is good, but it's a scale business. You gotta get the business to size. And so 2019 continued healthy uptick. 2020 hits, and we're literally on the two polar opposites of the spectrum, where hospitality got completely utterly annihilated, and aviation went through the fucking roof. So we could not have been, the emotions that were going through my mind on in this existence, where it's like you literally are watching, things that you've been a part of for the last 20, 25 years be completely destroyed. And then you're in this other business that you've now been in that business for about 5 years. And so you're no longer a newbie. And so you're dangerous enough to be dangerous, right? You have enough skill set and assets to be able to play in that space. And so our business from the end of 2019 till 2022 grew about 500%. So it was extraordinary growth, a really crazy story. And so, now we've moved our headquarters to Miami. my business partner he was in hospitality all the way up until 2022. He's fully in the aviation side. I have since then kind of re-immersed and dove back into the hospitality side of it, where I spend probably 60% of my time is in aviation. 40% is in hospitality. And, on any given week, it can sway a little bit, but joined up with 3 guys that I've known for a long time. Came on as a partner in their business, which is called Celeste. It's this 4-level entertainment venue. It's cocktail lounge, supper club, nightclub. It's a really unique property. But they have had a real appetite for growth. Super passionate about hospitality. They're in the real estate business. That's really kind of where their wealth and where their careers started. And so we're opening 2 more restaurants together this year. And I think that this time around, though, it's a little different for me because previously I didn't have another industry and other businesses that were occupying time. And so as we're architecting this new hospitality company that we're building, which is called the Celeste Group, which this is the first place that I'm actually announcing that. And that'll be announced here in the press, probably in the next week and a half. But the architecture of the businesses, I mean, we're all in our mid to late 40s. It's really focused on the future of hospitality in the sense of talent, and so my objective is to find young men and women that really are passionate about doing the things that we did throughout our 20s and 30s, and that are just looking for an opportunity and a chance to shine. And so what I know is I'm committed and dedicated to coaching and mentoring. It's part of my purpose. It's part of my fabric. And so that, I think, enables myself and the company to go find young talent, because it's abundant. And there's some people, honestly, that we meet that don't even know that they have the talent, and it's you have to foster it, and you have to encourage and empower and inspire them to kind of reach, for bigger things. But it really is the only way that I can actually do 2 things at once. It's like, Elon Musk has insanely, creative and intelligent people that are behind him on each one of these businesses. He may quote unquote be CEO of these companies, but these companies are run by some of the smartest people on the planet. And the only way that he's able to move from industry to industry, and one, he's a generational mind, but he is he's supported by some extreme talent. And so that, to me, is it's all worth the investment that's required to be able to do that. And so when you look at the pie, my size of the pie is kind of irrelevant. It's I think we can grow this thing. I think I have a percentage of that pie that I have in my mind, but it's all fair and equitable, and we still are leaving portions of this on the table so that other people can come to the table and eat. Yeah. So that's where we are right now.
That's awesome.
Want to take a quick time out. There was a couple of times when you were speaking there where you cut out, and
okay.
Could be your Wi-Fi, could be a couple of things, but one of the things I'd ask is if you have other tabs open, if you could X out of them, because sometimes that can help web browser speed a little bit. I just want to make sure that there's no issues with the recording.
I've got thousands open.
I can do it.
That's typically like my computer. You're good.
It's wild.
I looked at the website for the Celeste property in Chicago. That's amazing.
It's cool.
Very unique. Very different.
Very cool.
Let me know when you're done, and I'll get back to asking some questions.
I also am using a microphone, which should be fine, right?
Yeah. That should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Typically, the recording is actually higher quality than what you see. So if you see one of us who's a little blurry, that's pretty normal. That's kind of part of the recording to the cloud.
And Riverside usually syncs it up, so that it basically is recording to your computer and then syncs up. So it shouldn't be a problem. We just didn't want it to get worse.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're good.
All right, Arturo, that's an incredible story. So interesting and so fascinating in so many ways. The one thing I couldn't help thinking about as you told that story was, what would have happened if you stayed as a junior copywriter?
Oh my God.
How would your career and your life be different if you're like, screw it, finally, I'm done. I'm walking away from this stupid industry.
Yeah, I think, I'm a big believer in destiny and fate. And so I think that the lives that we create for ourselves is already predestined in a sense. And so it's like, I don't know how long I would have stayed there, because I think, to kind of like the bones and the premise behind the things that you guys talk about, people that really have extraordinary grit and really want to hustle, most of us are built. There certainly is coaching and empowerment and finding out, who we are as we grow. But a lot of that is deeply rooted. It's in your DNA. And so something about what I wanted to do was just, I never felt comfortable being a cog in the system. It was always, and it was never like, hey, I need to beat my chest and be this power. It was always about how do we empower and how do we get this thing or be part of something that's much bigger. So I probably would have quit and probably maybe would have found my way in some way, shape, or form to other industries or businesses. But what I know is that I'm cut out to serve. I'm a service focused individual. Like I love being in the service business. And I think it's part of the core is like, I love making people happy. I love seeing people smile. And so I would have found myself going into some business that would allow me to do that for sure.
I think the problem, though, is so many people don't know what they're cut out for. You must have discovered that at some point in your early career, and that must be what had kept you in the hospitality world for so long. You must have had some fascination with the joy of helping people and seeing them grow as young individuals.
I mean, I think I started to realize in college that I had an ability to wrangle people, charm people, put people at ease, that kind of thing. I think from a very young age, and I tell my mom this story all the time, but and it's slightly creepy, but there was a day that like I just kind of had this overwhelming like feeling like there was something I was put here to do. Have never really been able to define it, but have from that day have been searching for it. And so I think it's what I've found is that I really find great enjoyment in coaching, mentoring, and trying to help people establish and accomplish the goals that they set out for. And in that process, this idea of creating happiness for people through service is layered in there. But I think, listen, there's been a very strong understanding of purpose, I would say, for the last 8 years. But I think leading up to my 40th, I was still searching hard to figure out what I was going to be. And I was like deep into my career, there was still some really big gaps and holes in like who I was going to become. And I still think that there's so much story and narrative that's going to be told.
One of the things that really jumped out to me is when people look at someone that's had success, right? You kind of mentioned there's a lot of failures around the way. And what I heard through that whole story was all these micro pivots, but with some very kind of value-based things, right? So like you clearly had your eyes open and had to pivot, not even just what you were doing, but even probably who you are as a person and as a leader in all these different experiences. And now it's, you've got more experience behind it. So this next gig you have, right, you're pulling from all those experiences. But can you speak to just like in your mindset of openness? I think a lot of times people pick lanes and get kind of closed-minded, and then really miss the value they can create for other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think in order to be, you have to be a tremendous listener, like life listener, if you're really going to try to figure out and better understand your path, I think. And I certainly have. I've also, sometimes had, stronger convictions that may have, definitely steered me down a specific, road or whatever. But even now, it's try to be as open-minded as humanly possible that you can be. And, but I definitely have a box around the things that I will do and I won't do, And so, probably it was, maybe 4 years ago, I was able to finally get to this point where I was able to create a purpose statement. And that actually came about from, I was invited to go to this week-long Lululemon retreat in Malibu. For some reason, I got this call. Somebody knew me somehow, whatever, and it was 40 people from around the planet, mainly the Americas, but there was some Europeans there, famous UFC fighters, comedians, actors, like it was a ragtag, random bunch, and the whole focus of the week was that we were going to do yoga, we were going to focus, we were going to meditate, but it was to arrive and leave with a purpose statement of like who you are, what you're about. So, and how they kind of, flushed it out. The question was, if you were standing in front of your God, a God, the God, and that individual, that deity, whatever, asked you, why do you think I put you on this earth? Then what would your response be? And so, most people that I ask that question are like, I don't know. Like, why are you asking me such tough questions? And so, because I do think that I think that life is about answering that question. And so when we can get to that point where we answer that question, the direction of where we should go is way clearer. And, there's a happiness value in that, I think. And so for me, it was, my statement has evolved. It originally was, to inspire, empower, and bring happiness to those around me. And then I was like, well, how do I insert myself into that equation? Like, I got to be happy, and like, I got to be inspired, and I got to be empowered. And so it was to inspire, empower, and bring happiness to myself and those around me. And then this year I added my family because it was very specific. I have two daughters and a wife, and, extended family, parents and sisters and such. And so now it exists is to inspire, empower, and bring happiness to my family, myself, and those around me. And that allows me to understand why I've gravitated towards these service businesses. It understands why it gives me understanding to why I'm so dedicated to inspiring and empowering people in terms of the coaching piece. Like, I've always loved coaching people, and I never really understood why. Like, I would go way out of my way to do crazy things for people at no real gain to myself outside of like helping. And so, so that allowed me to really understand my behavior a lot better. And it also forces me to keep myself in that equation that I'm constantly looking for inspiration and empowerment for myself. And so that comes from, the things that I do. It comes from the things that I read, the people that I interact with, the walks that I take outside on a beautiful day, so it's helped, and it may evolve again. I don't know what that statement looks and feels like in 5 years, but for now it's helping me assess where I spend time and energy. And it's also validated this idea that I can be, in different industries, because I can do those things across multiple, different industries, and so it's helped clear the path a little bit.
When you say that, the big thing that comes back to me is, how do you increase your own happiness? It often starts by giving it away. Right?
For sure.
When you talk about the service and value and flowing into others, right? Like I feel like so often in today's society, there's so much me culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
And in reality, that's not really where happiness tends to lie. And don't get me wrong, you need to be happy too, right? I mean, that's part of your purpose statement, but it's, how do you get there? It tends to, the happiest people in the world tend to be the least selfish.
For sure. And it's, listen, I meet miserable people every day, and
hopefully not on the show.
No, my God, no, you guys are great. But I don't understand it. I don't comprehend it. I know that now we all have choices about, the company we keep, but I think life is a lot sweeter when you understand those things. And for me, giving and watching other people succeed is a real energy boost.
For sure.
What I found interesting about that whole story that you shared with us is that it reminds me of something that we do a lot in our coaching program, and something that I've been doing for a long time, which is helping people create a crystal clear vision or vision statement. And not, for those listening, it's not the vision statement you see on a typical website that's snoozy, corporate speak, and boring.
Yeah.
It is understanding, where are you now and where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And as much personally and professionally as it is anything else. Yeah. And I found that there are some successful people, highly successful people, that they don't really know what they want. They don't really know where they want to be.
A lot.
And I think if you don't have that roadmap to drive from Wisconsin to Miami, Florida, I mean, good luck, right? You can want it all you want, but wanting it and having a roadmap are two different things. And so I'm really curious, when you're helping people, how do you see that? How has that translated into a lot of your leadership and coaching?
Yeah, I mean, it's first and foremost, it's, the questions about, why are you here? Like, why are you doing this? Like, is it a means to an end? Is it to pay your bills? Is it, because I think, and these are conversations up and down the ladder with people that are experienced and inexperienced. I think you first have to understand why you're doing certain actions before you can begin to assess what the next step is. And so, and then the question is, well, where is the end game? What would you rather be doing? What would your life, how would your life look differently? And if, people are painting pictures that are entirely different than what they're currently doing, I said, well, then there's a real issue here. We can solve it, but the issue is that you're doing something you don't really want to be doing. And so, and for a lot of people, it's easier said than done, right? It's like, well, hey, I'm making $100,000 over here, but I'd rather be a painter in Paris. Well, okay. So there is a life that you could accomplish to get there. It may not be next year, maybe not be in 5 years, but it's achievable. It's all achievable. So, I think it's getting into these heartfelt, conversations with people to really understand what makes them tick, a little bit understanding their origin story, and really what they're trying to accomplish and who they're trying to be. And so I think when you really try to keep, your career and your family, church and state, I've never been able to do that. And so to me, it's totally intermingled and intertwined. And for me, in order for me to be happy in my career, I have to be able to do the things that I need to do. And so, like, I'm a workaholic because that's just I don't even like using that word, but I'm driven to be a problem solver, and I'm always tinkering with things. And it's like, those are the things that I enjoy doing. But I also know that I have a real obligation, a passion, and a love to spend time with my family. And so it's trying to find balance is driven by really understanding the things that you're trying to accomplish and that you want to accomplish, and the things that are important to you and not important to you. And so creating these vision statements, or trying to understand what that roadmap looks like, is a critical part of the process, I think. And for anybody, even if you're, in your 20s, like, teens, or moving through, give it a stab, just take a stab at it. Like, it could change entirely, as things do change in life, because what you expect to be constant can never really be constant. It's like nothing is permanent. We're always in flux. And so it's, but you got to start somewhere. You got to give it a shot. And so, that's where it begins, I think.
Yeah. One of the other things that I think you have perspective on that I'd love for you to share is creating experiences, right? You talked about your various businesses, hospitality. It's all about experiences, and I think so many businesses, all businesses are created on creating value for someone else. But I think in today's business world, there's a lot of people that talk about experience, but they don't necessarily deliver one. So I'm curious, in all of your business experience, like, what are some things you've seen are ways to really change your lens to really heighten that experience?
I mean, listen, I think the idea of real service, white glove service, is a dying thing, and I'm dedicated to making sure that it does not die. Okay, and so I do think that there's a generational issue with what people value and what they perceive as real service and experience. I do. It's the younger generation, and I sound like this old man talking about how I used to walk to school with no shoes on, but it's the younger generation really does not understand that human interaction and being able to understand a psychology of what giving means and what real service means has been lost to a certain extent. I've kids that I'm coaching and mentoring, and they don't understand. I'm like, hey, I'm making your business cards like business cards. Like, yeah, you should have some method of connecting with people and doing some outreach, and you should understand what shaking a hand means, and you should go get face to face with somebody if you really value that business. And then on the flip side too, if you're in a service-based business, you should understand somebody is paying you. They're paying you for a service. So the idea that you are not entirely focused on executing to expectation you're missing the entire point. And so I think that the world, business, and just in humanity, we would be a much better place if people really tried to understand what the outcomes were going to be of their actions and focused on creating a better experience overall. And so I do think that the pandemic shook a lot of that out in a bad way, meaning that there were people that I think abandoned service-based businesses and service-based, specific characteristics because we had to, or things were very diminished in the world that we lived in for a period of 2 years or whatever. And so certainly in hospitality, it's very evident that a lot of the older hospitality, like IP, people that had been doing it for a long time, moved on to other businesses because these were the people that said, never again am I going to be put on the sidelines and be, forced to think that I may not be able to feed my family today. And so we lost a lot of that upper tier, experience level from the pandemic. Some people are coming back to it. Some are, because I think they're starting to realize that being in the service business or hospitality business, they're passionate about. But it's, it also gave them an opportunity to get on the sidelines and realize that, hospitality, for example, is a very rigorous business and it's not for everybody. So, so I think it can be retrained and retaught. It's certainly part of one of the missions that we have in our organization is to really allow people to begin to understand what that looks like and feels like, because I think that is if you can ingrain that culturally into any business, it becomes it's a secret weapon.
I think too that people will learn to value hospitality and service, whether it be in the service industry at a restaurant or in the business world, because ultimately we're all kind of in the service business. I mean, if you're in business in any capacity, you're in the service world.
Yeah.
At least that should be your mindset. What do you think?
Totally. No, I think 100%, but again, it's like, you meet people that, whether you're calling American Airlines which by the way, I have a great relationship with American Airlines, just an example. You call and you encounter somebody that really should not be providing any kind of service for anything, because it's like, hey, listen, I'm calling you, you're the service person, and you're giving me static, or you have this attitude. It's like, life could be a lot simpler if people understood that. But along with service and along with coaching and that hustle DNA that I talked about, I think that there are people that were built to understand how to service and how to create an easing relationship with people that they meet.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think the lens of an experience too, I think far too often, again, I think people have the lens of themselves versus the lens of the customer.
Yeah.
And it's, often just those little things. I was at a hotel just this past week, right? And just little things, right? Like that the guy opening the door asked my name, and when I showed up at the front desk, they knew my name. Right? Like, that is such a small thing, right? But like, and look, I know he had a microphone on his head and in his ear, right? Like, I understand how they executed, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't care how they executed. It was just like, that it's the, and it wasn't just that, but it's, those are the types of things that stack up.
For sure.
So
completely necessary.
So, as you look at, all the different, businesses you're in and experiences and things like that, what's on the horizon? What do you see in the next 2 to 5 years in hospitality and just the experience-based businesses you're in?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're in the experience economy. I think the experience economy has started, it started, maybe 10 years ago, where the value of experience has increased dramatically. And so you have, right now in travel, really across the board. So from, very accessible travel to super high-end luxury travel, business is wildly busy, and it's really a testament to the fact that people are willing to spend money on experiences and are slowly starting to move away from this perceived value of physical things, right? And so, somebody'd rather spend $12,000 on a vacation with their family than going to get a $12,000 Rolex or something. And so we're seeing that. To me, it makes me very happy, because I think that these are the things that create lasting memories, right? That forever in your mind, in your life, these will be things that will be there, and you'll be a lot richer of a person in experience by doing these things and having that commitment. So, for me, expanding, really getting a chance to continue to expand both sides of, aviation and the hospitality space is really the dream. I think there's an ecosystem of businesses around each one of those platforms that I intend to expand. And, hopefully through this growth, we can really impact, people that are going to be stakeholders in both of those businesses for us, or those various businesses. And so to me, that means getting into the coaching and mentoring mindset in that, if you have teammates that have jumped on board because they've had faith that your business, your company is going to lead them to somewhere different in their growth process, that, if they spend 2 years, 3 years, 5 years with you, that those are some of the best years that they've ever spent in their adult life in terms of career wise. And that's a commitment that I make across the board to really try to adhere to that And so what does that mean? It means, you know, giving an opportunity and creating an opportunity for real career growth, giving them a skill set that's going to make them extremely valuable and talented in wherever they want to go, and not just for us. I mean, I tell everybody, I said, listen, the things that I'm going to teach you and the things that we're going to focus on, don't ignore that I'm teaching you because this is going to be important for us, you in this job. I'm teaching you these things because this is going to make you better at whatever you do beyond us. And so if you're here for 5 years, great. You have a long runway. My hope is that the things that you learn here, the time that we spend, makes you that much happier, more valuable into the future. So
that's phenomenal. I love that. Arturo, I'm going to ask you one last question before we let you go. For all those listening, what is one quick leadership tip or maybe productivity hack that is your absolute favorite right now?
Leadership tip. God, oh my God, there's so many, but I think assessing, what you really expect for yourself, this is, these kind of going back to like biblical 10 commandments. It's like really treating people with the kindness that you two would expect. And I think, leadership also requires a commitment to sacrifice. I mean, you really truly have to be committed to being the last in the line. There's a famous book by, I think, Simon Sinek. It's like Leaders Eat Last. And it is a fact. It's you have to be really comfortable with being the last person that you consider in the process. And in doing that, it's, people that are really hungry towards leadership, that is their selfish pleasure, though. Their selfish pleasure is making sure everybody is okay. You good? You okay? You good? And then that's where their fulfillment comes. So, but I think, leadership is certainly not for everybody. Certainly everybody can practice it. They can practice it. I do think that there are some people that are just born innately towards being great leaders and have that willingness to sacrifice just kind of ingrained in them. So I think assessing that, checking the temperature on that, as far as organizational or growth hack, write things down, plan it out, map it out, journal, dreaming is important. You can't really achieve things without actually dreaming it. So it's, somebody had told me in the past, when I asked him, somebody I wildly respect was, for a long time was mentoring me. Actually was somebody that was critical in the start of Tesla, actually. Said, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. And so if you can, in your mind, you can visualize what it could look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, an hour from now, well, then you have the map, the dots is already established. You can go backwards from that. So dreaming is a very critical part just in life in general. I think you have to have aspirations, write them down, keep yourself in check. Little things every day get you to the big goal.
So powerful and so true. Arturo, thanks for being here today. Before we let you off the hook, can you tell everybody where they can find you online? Maybe drop a couple URLs to some of your websites, your businesses.
Yeah, I mean, Triumph Jets is going to be one of them. That's our aviation focused business. Big Game Air is another business that we have. BigGameAir.com, TriumphJets.com. The Celeste Group, as I mentioned, will be visible publicly here probably in the next 10 days. The best way to get in touch with me and to see the various businesses that I'm involved in is going to be in LinkedIn. Arturo Gomez, LinkedIn.
And you and our guy, Rob Krezi, have a podcast, right?
We do. It's called Leadership DNA. So we're two guys that are insanely, hooked and dedicated to talking about, the attributes that make leadership a superpower, essentially, and all the things that go into that. So we jam, try to put something out on a weekly basis. I actually have a session with him tomorrow to get a couple recordings in.
Tell him we said hello.
I will.
For those listening, I mean, we encourage everyone to listen to podcasts and not just ours, because there is so much to be gained. You're going to work, you're commuting. I mean, your vehicle can literally be a university on wheels, and that's something that's helped me so much throughout the years. But anyways, Arturo, thank you for being here.
Of course.
For all the listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode. Until next time, peace.